don't understand discussion. Only hit certain shit. I'm a missing.
Welcome back to another episode of Patman Garage, and we're working on yet another BMW. This is a 2005 series. Still has the inline six. This is an older generation of that same inline six, but we're doing oil filter housing. There you go. Oil filter housing, gasket. Same thing we did on the previous one, and this one's designed a little different. And I think I've got it ready to come out, so let y'all see what we got going on here. So I've got alternator set aside, and I think I've got the oil filter housing ready to come out. Power steering pump still attached. I'm hoping I can just kind of lean it out enough, slide a gasket in and out, and pop it back in. One thing I did want to bring attention to is, see if I can get this on camera, but you look way back in here, you can see all this oil. There you go. See all that oil sitting on the block. Customer brought it to me saying the oil filter housing was leaking and also needed an oil pan. Well, I think that the oil filter housing gasket that's here is leaking out and back down the oil pan to make it look like the oil pan's leaking. So he may not need a gasket for the oil pan at all. So we're going to make sure we clean this up really well and do some more testing before we sell more parts. So this is just like I mentioned on the last video, the BMW, you always want to more or less start top down. You don't want to do the oil pan gasket in this case just to find out it was actually something leaking above it. So we know for sure that it's leaking above it, so let's start there, clean it all off, and then baseline it and see what happens after that. As far as the work procedures here, alternator is fairly straightforward. There's two big bolts. There's 17s, I believe, and then there's a handful of bolts for the oil filter housing. And I think the hardest part was getting the belt off of it. It was kind of in a weird position because I'm trying to work around not having to take the upper radiator hose out. If you were already going to do a coolant flush or something, taking the upper radiator hose out would make this job so much easier, but I'm trying not to disturb more than I need to. So we'll see if we can get this housing off of here and see what happens. Well, I very quickly got the oil cooler off, or oil filter housing off, and I did have this banjo bolt. It's on the there's an oil line that goes off the back of the it's somewhere about here. It's just off the side of the just inboard of the pressure sensor, but we've got it out enough where we can snake a new gasket in there and get it back together. There are a couple of dowel pins on the block side that there's one there and there's one at the bottom down there, so it does kind of come off, kind of a little tight fit, but that should help us get it lined back up correctly, so that's good. And again, you can see how much oil is down in the valley below where the gasket, so the gasket sits up in here, and you can see how much oil is all the way down there at the bottom. So we're definitely in the right ballpark here. We'll slide a new gasket on it, get it back together. Oh, and my arms are freaking awesome right now. So I've already cleaned up several times, but oh, I gotta love doing oil leaks on old cars. Well, that turned into quite the adventure. So first off, banjo bolt has a washer on the bolt head side and on the cooler side, or the filter side, so make sure you get both those off and replace those. And then so this turned into quite the adventure. So I showed you before how the on the other BMW how stiff the gasket was, and it was not, you know, sagging under its own weight. So this is the gasket that came out, and it literally is turned into hard plastic, and I had to scrape it out and chip it out until it came off. So literally with no effort, I can just snap it in half. And I mean, that's rubber. And it snaps like that. That's crazy. So I mean, look, we'll do it again here. So yeah, it just, the gasket literally just vaporized when I was chipping it out with the screwdriver. So that's definitely a first for me. This is more than likely the original gasket that's 20 something years old, and so first for me to see one that's that bad, that brittle. But I don't do a whole lot of them, thankfully, but you know, I have worked on enough cars that have gaskets like this, and I've literally never seen one that bad. So 100% definitely a leak. So we'll get it back together and onto the road. Well, she went back together really nicely. Actually went together very smoothly, so that's good. That's always a bonus when it just falls back together. I have the oil filter housing off. I still need to finish doing the oil change because you wanted to do that while we have it. And like I said, I'm dirty. You pull the glove off and you can see the difference there. So I'm gonna get this thing finished up and get it test driven and get it back out of here. And last but not least, another pro tip. So if you're doing an oil change and you still got your oil filter out, and you don't want to have to find a funnel to pour in the little bitty hole in the valve cover, you got a giant hole right there. Just pour straight in there. No big deal. It's all going to the same place. It all goes back down to the oil pan. Well, it drained a little slower down into the block than I wanted, so I'm probably gonna go grab a funnel real quick and fill this thing up. She is running and back together, and so far nothing underneath it, so I think we did a good job. I'm gonna go run around the block, put a couple miles on it, and park it in a different spot because there was a couple drips from when it got here, but should be all done, ready to go home. So appreciate y'all checking out another video, and I will catch y'all on the next one.